Chapter 7. The ancient parchment crackled as Dr. Voss unrolled it across his desk. The original prophecy written in script so old it seemed to pulse with its own inner light. 3 days had passed since the battle, 3 days of fragile peace as wolves from both packs worked together to repair the damage. But Sarah could feel something building in the air, a tension that made her skin crawl with unease. "I found it in the restricted archives," Dr. Voss said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He'd been working nonstop to understand what had happened during the battle. Hidden beneath layers of protective spells that took me this long to unravel. Sarah leaned forward, studying the text. The moon tongue came more easily to her now, the ancient words translating themselves in her mind as she read. "When darkness claims the throne of wolves and brothers' blood runs cold, the moon-blessed child shall rise to choose the fate of new and old. Bonded to a king whose crown has cursed his very soul, she'll either damn all packkind to the dark or make the broken whole. But know the price of such a choice. 2 souls becoming one, for light and shadow cannot meet unless the deed is done. The mating bond shall either cleanse the curse upon his name, or drag the moon blessed to the depths and set the world aflame." The words settled into her bones like prophecy always did, with the weight of absolute truth. Sarah sank back in her chair, understanding flooding through her with horrible clarity. "The complete mating bond," she whispered. "That's what it means by 2 souls becoming one." Dr. Voss nodded grimly. "The physical claiming, yes. But more than that, a complete spiritual merger. Your souls would be permanently intertwined, sharing not just thoughts and emotions, but the very essence of what makes you who you are. And if Darius's curse is stronger than my light, it would corrupt you completely, turn you into something worse than he ever was." The doctor's expression was grave. "But if your power is stronger, it would cleanse him entirely." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of choice settling on her shoulders once again. Either way, there's no going back. A scream echoed through the castle corridors, high and terrified. All 3 of them froze, recognizing the sound of mortal fear. "That came from the East Wing," Dr. Voss said, already moving toward his medical bag. They ran through the halls, following the sounds of panic. What they found in the East Wing library made Sarah's blood turn to ice. 3 castle servants lay on the floor, their throats torn out with savage precision. Blood pooled on the ancient Persian rugs, and the scent of violence hung heavy in the air. But it was the figure crouched over the bodies that made her heart shatter. Darius knelt among the carnage, his hands and mouth stained crimson. His eyes had gone completely gold, and when he looked up at their approach, there was no recognition in them. No humanity at all. "Darius," Sarah breathed, taking a step toward him. He snarled at the sound of her voice, lips pulling back to reveal fangs that had grown too long for his human mouth. The curse had accelerated again, triggered by something she couldn't identify. "Don't come closer," Dr. Voss warned, pulling out a silver-tipped tranquilizer dart. "He's lost to the beast. There's no reasoning with him now." But even as he spoke, Sarah could feel something through their bond, a tiny spark of the man she loved, trapped deep within the monster he'd become. He was still in there, fighting desperately against the darkness consuming him. "Darius," she said again, more firmly this time. "I know you can hear me." The golden eyes focused on her face, and for a moment she saw a flicker of recognition. His mouth moved as if trying to speak, but only a growl emerged. "The curse is accelerating," Dr. Voss said quietly. "Whatever triggered this episode, it's pushed him past the breaking point. If we don't act soon..." He didn't need to finish. Soon there would be nothing left of Darius at all, just a beast wearing his face. "There has to be something we can do," Sarah said desperately. "Some way to reach him." "There is." The voice came from behind them, cold and familiar. Marcus stepped into the library, but this wasn't the confused, redeemed brother from 3 days ago. The hunger was back in his silver eyes, along with something else, a terrible resolve. "The mating bond," he continued, moving closer to the scene of carnage. "Complete the prophecy, sister. It's the only way." "You said the healing light had changed you," Sarah accused. "That you didn't want power anymore." "I lied." His smile was sharp as a blade. "Did you really think a few pretty words and some magical light could undo 20 years of planning? I let you think you'd redeemed me because it served my purposes." Dr. Voss raised his tranquilizer gun, but Marcus gestured almost casually. The doctor flew backward, hitting the wall hard enough to crack the stone. He slumped to the floor unconscious. "Just the 3 of us now," Marcus said, his gaze moving between Sarah and the beast that had been Darius. "Perfect for a family reunion." Darius's head turned toward Marcus, nostrils flaring as he scented a new threat. The growl that emerged from his throat was purely animal. "Look at him," Marcus continued conversationally. "The great Alpha King, reduced to a mindless beast. Do you know what triggered this latest episode?" Sarah's heart clenched. "What did you do?" "I may have mentioned to him that you were considering leaving the castle. That you'd asked me about safe passage to the human territories." Marcus's smile widened. "The thought of losing you sent him over the edge completely." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Look at him, Serafina. Really look. He'd rather become a monster than risk you walking away." Marcus took another step closer. "That's not love, that's obsession. The curse has been feeding on his feelings for you all along." The words hit her like physical blows because part of them rang with horrible truth. She could feel Darius's emotions through their bond, possessiveness, desperate need, the kind of consuming desire that bordered on madness. "The prophecy offers you two choices," Marcus continued. "Complete the mating bond and risk corruption, or let him die and rule by my side, as we were always meant to." "That's not how the prophecy works," Sarah protested. "It says I'll either cleanse his curse or be corrupted by it. There's no third option. Isn't there?" Marcus moved closer to Darius, who tracked his movement with predatory intensity. "What if you simply chose not to complete the bond at all? Let the curse consume him entirely, then take his place as the rightful ruler of all pack-kind." "I won't let you manipulate me again." "I'm not manipulating you, I'm offering you freedom." His voice dropped to that hypnotic tone she remembered from their previous confrontation. "Think about it, sister. If you complete the bond and the curse corrupts you, you'll become something worse than he ever was. If you try to cleanse him and fail, you'll both be lost." Darius suddenly lunged at Marcus, moving with inhuman speed. But Marcus was ready for him, silver chains appearing from nowhere to wrap around the cursed king. They glowed with moon magic, holding him fast despite his supernatural strength. "But if you walk away," Marcus finished, "you remain pure. Uncorrupted. Free to use your power as you see fit." Sarah stared at Darius thrashing against the chains, no longer human enough to speak, but still trying desperately to reach her. Through their bond she could feel his terror, not of death but of her leaving him. "He loves you," she realized suddenly. "Not obsession. Not possession. Love. Real love. Does it matter?" Marcus demanded. "Look what his love has cost already. 3 innocent people dead because he couldn't control himself." "No." Sarah's voice grew stronger as understanding dawned. 3 people dead because you triggered an episode deliberately. You're still pulling strings, still manipulating events. I'm trying to save you from making a terrible mistake. The only mistake would be listening to you." Sarah moved toward Darius, ignoring the way he snarled at her approach. "The prophecy doesn't offer 3 choices, Marcus. It offers 2. And I've already made mine." She reached out to touch Darius's face, and he went completely still. Even consumed by the curse, some part of him recognized her touch, welcomed it. "Sarah, no." Marcus lunged toward them. "If you complete the bond." "If I complete the bond, we'll face whatever comes together." She looked into Darius's golden eyes and saw the man trapped within the beast. That's what love means. Not running when things get difficult, but choosing to stay and fight. She leaned down and pressed her lips to his, pouring every ounce of love and determination she possessed into the kiss. Power flared between them, silver light meeting golden shadow, her magic recognizing and embracing his despite the curse's corruption. "Sarah," Darius's mental voice was weak, but unmistakably human. "Don't do this. If the curse takes you too, then we'll find a way back together," she replied. "I'm not leaving you. I love you. I love you too. Now hold on." She bit down on her lower lip, drawing blood, then pressed the wound to his mouth. The taste of her blood on his tongue completed the first stage of the mating bond, and power exploded through both of them like a supernova. Marcus screamed in rage and desperation. "You don't know what you're doing." But Sarah barely heard him. The bond was forming, silver threads of connection weaving between her soul and Darius's. She could feel his curse fighting against her light, ancient dark magic clashing with the power of the moon blessed. For a terrifying moment, she thought the curse might win. It was so old, so deeply embedded in his very essence. She felt darkness creeping through the bond toward her, seeking to corrupt her pure light. Then she remembered something, the words she'd spoken during the battle, the magic that had healed instead of destroyed. "By love's light, let all bonds be broken." She spoke the words again, but this time she directed them inward, at the curse trying to claim them both. Love was the strongest magic of all, stronger even than ancient curses and prophetic doom. The darkness recoiled from her light, unable to corrupt something so purely given. Instead of being dragged down to his level, she pulled him up to hers. The curse began to unravel, its power dissolving under the onslaught of unconditional love. Darius's eyes slowly cleared, gold fading back to their natural storm gray. The two long fangs retracted, and intelligence returned to his gaze. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice fully human again. "I'm here." She helped him sit up, both of them shaking from the intensity of what they'd shared. "It's over. The curse. Gone." She could feel it, the absence of that dark weight that had pressed on his soul for so long. Cleansed completely. Marcus stood frozen nearby, staring at them with an expression of absolute disbelief. "Impossible. The prophecy said. The prophecy said I would either damn all pack-kind or make the broken whole," Sarah finished, rising to her feet with Darius's help. "I chose to heal. But the risk was worth it." Darius's arm came around her waist, solid and warm and perfectly human. "Some things are worth any risk." Marcus's expression shifted from disbelief to rage to something that might have been grief. "You could have ruled everything," he whispered. "We could have remade this world." "The world doesn't need remaking," Sarah said gently. "It needs healing. And healing starts with choosing love over power, every single time." Her brother stared at them for a long moment, then simply vanished into shadows. Whether he would return or disappear forever, she didn't know. But for now, the immediate threat was over. "Is it really finished?" Darius asked, his mental voice intertwining with hers through their newly completed bond. Sarah looked around the blood-stained library, then out the window where wolves from both packs were working together to rebuild what had been broken. The prophecy was fulfilled, the curse was lifted, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly free. "No," she said, smiling up at the man she'd chosen to love despite every obstacle. "It's just beginning." The prophecy had been fulfilled, but their story was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, political upheavals, the work of truly uniting the packs under a new kind of leadership. But they would face it all together, bonded not just by prophecy or magic, but by the kind of love that could overcome any curse. And sometimes that was the most powerful magic of all. Chapter 8. The coronation ceremony had been delayed for 3 weeks while the castle recovered from the battle, but now Blackthorn's great hall gleamed with restored beauty. Representatives from every pack in the realm had come to witness something unprecedented: the crowning of the first Omega Queen in over 5 centuries. Sarah stood before the ancient mirror in her chambers, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The gown was magnificent, deep midnight blue silk that seemed to capture starlight in its folds, with silver embroidery that traced patterns of moons and wolves around the bodice. A circlet of white gold and sapphires rested on her dark hair, marking her as queen-elect. "You look nervous," Darius said from the doorway, his own ceremonial robes making him appear every inch the king he'd always been. "I am nervous." She turned to face him, still marveling at the change in him since the curse's breaking. The constant tension was gone from his shoulders, the haunted look erased from his eyes. He looked younger, more at peace than she'd ever seen him. "What if I'm not ready for this?" "Ready for what?" "Being queen." He crossed to her and took her hands, their bond humming with warmth and affection. "You've been ready since the moment you chose to save me rather than yourself." Through the tall windows, she could see the assembled crowds in the courtyard below. Wolves from every pack, including many from the Shadow Pack who had chosen to pledge their loyalty to the new regime. Even some of the pack elders who had once demanded her removal now waited eagerly to witness her coronation. "Dr. Voss found something," Darius said, his expression growing more serious. "In the archives. Something about the curse that changes everything we thought we knew." Sarah's stomach clenched. "What kind of something?" The curse wasn't random, and it wasn't just punishment. He moved to her desk and picked up a scroll she recognized, one of the ancient texts from the restricted archives. It was preparation. "For what?" "Read it yourself." He handed her the scroll, and she unrolled it carefully. The text was in Old Norse, but her newfound abilities translated it automatically. "The King of Wolves must know darkness before he can command light. Only through suffering can he understand the weight of power. Only by touching the abyss can he guide others away from its edge. When the moon-blessed comes to claim her throne, she will bond not with an innocent king, but with one who has been forged in shadow and tempered by pain. Together, they will face what comes from beyond the veil, the forgotten ones who seek to reclaim what was once theirs." "The forgotten ones," Sarah whispered. "The ancient enemies you mentioned before. They're real." According to this, They're the original inhabitants of our realm. Beings of pure shadow and hunger who ruled before the first werewolves claimed this land. Darius's jaw tightened. The text suggests they've been waiting, building power, preparing for their return. And the curse was meant to prepare you to fight them. To prepare us to fight them. He reached for her hand again, their fingers intertwining naturally. The prophecy was never just about uniting the werewolf packs, Sarah. It was about preparing for a war that's been coming for centuries. A knock at the door interrupted them. Your Majesties, came Dr. Voss's voice. It's time. Sarah's heart hammered as they made their way through the castle corridors toward the Great Hall. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of ancient words and ritualistic movements. She knelt before the assembled crowd while the eldest alpha from each pack came forward to offer their allegiance. Do you, Sarah Silvermoon, swear to protect and serve the werewolf nation with your life, your power, and your sacred honor? I do. The words came clearly, her voice strong and sure. The crown was heavier than she'd expected. White gold set with sapphires and moonstones that seemed to glow with their own inner light. When it settled on her head, power thrummed through her body, connecting her to every wolf in the realm. She could feel them all, thousands of pack bonds stretching across the continent, each one now tied to her through the ancient magic of sovereignty. The responsibility was overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time. But it was what happened next that truly changed everything. As the crowd erupted in cheers and howls of celebration, the Great Hall's windows suddenly darkened. Not with storm clouds or approaching night, but with something else, a creeping shadow that moved against the natural order of things. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. Frost began forming on the windows, and several of the older wolves whimpered with instinctive terror. What's happening? Someone shouted. Darius was already moving, his enhanced senses picking up something the others had missed. Everyone stay calm. Form defensive positions around the exits. But even as the words left his mouth, the shadows began to take shape. Figures emerged from the darkness, tall, impossibly thin beings with skin like black marble and eyes that burned with cold fire. They moved with fluid grace, but there was something fundamentally wrong about their presence, as if reality itself recoiled from them. The Forgotten Ones, Dr. Voss breathed. They're here. The lead figure stepped forward, its voice like winter wind through dead leaves. We have come to reclaim what was stolen from us, little wolves. This realm belongs to the Shadowkin. This realm belongs to no one, Darius said, stepping protectively in front of Sarah. Power radiated from him in waves, but even with the curse broken, she could sense his uncertainty. These weren't enemies he'd been trained to fight. Foolish king. The creature's laugh was like breaking glass. You know nothing of the old ways, the old claims. Before your kind walked on two legs, we ruled these lands. That was a long time ago, Sarah said, rising from her throne. The crown felt warm on her head now, pulsing with protective magic. Times change. People change. Do they? The creature's burning gaze fixed on her. You are the moon-blessed, are you not? The last daughter of a bloodline we remember well. You knew my ancestors? We devoured them. The creature smiled, revealing teeth like black diamonds. One by one, we consumed their light until none remained. You should have been extinct centuries ago. Rage flared in Sarah's chest, but with it came something else, understanding. That's why the moon-blessed bloodline became so rare. You've been hunting us. We have been patient, waiting for the right moment, the right combination of power and opportunity. The creature gestured to the assembled wolves, all of whom were pressed back against the walls in terror. A newly crowned queen, fresh with untested power. A king whose curse has just been broken, leaving him vulnerable. Perfect timing. You orchestrated this, Darius realized. The curse, the timing, even Marcus's rebellion. You've been manipulating events to bring us to this moment. We learned manipulation from watching your kind, the creature replied. Though I admit your brother was particularly easy to influence, moon-blessed child. His hunger for power made him an ideal puppet. As if summoned by the words, Marcus materialized from the shadows at the far end of the hall. But he looked different. His silver eyes now burned with the same cold fire as the creature's, and shadows writhed beneath his skin like living things. Hello, sister, he said, his voice carrying otherworldly harmonics. Ready for the family reunion? Marcus, what have you done? Sarah's heart broke at the sight of him. Whatever humanity had remained after their last confrontation was clearly gone now. What I had to do to gain real power. He moved closer, and she could see the corruption spreading through him like poison in his veins. The Shadowkin offered me something you never could, the chance to rule not just this realm, but all realms. At what cost? My soul, obviously. But what use is a soul when you can have eternity? His smile was sharp as broken glass. Join us, Seraphina. You and your king. Rule by our side as we reshape this world into something worthy of our power. Never. The word came from both Sarah and Darius simultaneously, their bond allowing them to speak with one voice. Then you'll die. Marcus raised his hand, shadows pouring from his fingertips like living smoke. And we'll take your power anyway. The battle that erupted was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The Shadowkin moved like liquid darkness, striking with claws that could rend both flesh and soul. The assembled wolves fought bravely, but mortal weapons were useless against beings who existed partially outside of reality. Sarah and Darius fought side by side, their combined power creating barriers of silver light that held the creatures back temporarily. But there were too many of them, and more were arriving with each passing moment. We can't win this way, Darius said, deflecting a shadow blade that would have taken his head off. There are too many of them. Then we don't fight them individually, Sarah replied, understanding flooding through her. We fight them as one. She reached for his hand, and the moment their fingers touched, their bond exploded into something greater than the sum of its parts. Not just the mating bond between two individuals, but a connection to every wolf in the realm through the crown magic. Listen to me, she broadcast through the pack bonds, her voice reaching every werewolf in the castle and beyond. We are not just individual packs anymore. We are one people, one nation, one family. Fight as one, and we cannot be defeated. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every wolf in the great hall howled in unison, their voices creating a harmony that made the very stones of the castle sing. Power flowed through the pack bonds like electricity, connecting them all in a web of shared strength and determination. The Shadowkin recoiled as if burned. Whatever power they possessed, it was individual, solitary. They couldn't comprehend or combat the unity of an entire species acting as one. Impossible, the lead creature hissed. Pack bonds are not supposed to extend beyond individual groups. They don't, Sarah said, power crackling around her like controlled lightning. Unless you have a moon blessed to amplify them, and a king who's learned to lead through darkness instead of despite it. She and Darius moved forward together, their combined will directing the pack power like a weapon. Silver light blazed from every wolf in the hall, creating a radiance that drove the shadows back step by step. Marcus tried one last desperate attack, shadow claws extended toward Sarah's heart. But she didn't dodge or defend. Instead, she opened her arms and embraced him, letting her light touch the corruption within him directly. I forgive you, she whispered as her power burned through the Shadowkin influence. I love you anyway. The corruption couldn't withstand that kind of unconditional acceptance. It fled from Marcus like smoke before a strong wind, leaving him collapsed but human in her arms. The other Shadowkin shrieked in rage and pain as the combined light of the pack bonds drove them back, through whatever dimensional rifts they'd used to enter this realm. The lead creature fixed its burning gaze on Sarah one last time. This is not over, moon-blessed. We are eternal, and we will return. When you do, Sarah replied, her voice carrying the authority of a true queen, we'll be ready. The creatures vanished, taking their unnatural shadows with them. Normal daylight flooded back through the windows, and the oppressive cold lifted like a breaking fever. In the aftermath, as the wounded were tended and the hall slowly returned to something approaching normal, Sarah found herself alone with Darius in a quiet alcove. The crown felt heavier on her head now, weighted with the responsibility of what they'd just learned. They'll be back, she said. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but they'll return. Then we'll face them together. He pulled her into his arms, and she marveled again at how perfectly they fit together. All of us. The entire werewolf nation, united as one people. Is that what we are now? One nation. It's what we've always been deep down. We just needed the right catalyst to remember it. He smiled down at her, love shining in his storm-gray eyes. You've given our people something they've never had before, true unity. Sarah looked out through the tall windows at the wolves below, former enemies now working together to repair battle damage. Shadow Pack and Blackthorn Pack, along with dozens of others, all moving with shared purpose. What happens now? She asked. Now we build something new. A kingdom worthy of the sacrifices that created it. Darius's hand found hers, their bond humming with warmth and possibility. We prepare for the battles to come, and we make sure our people are ready. Together? Always together. Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking lost and uncertain without the corruption that had defined him for so long. "Sarah, I don't know how to." "Come here," she said simply, opening her arms to her brother. He stumbled forward and collapsed against her, 20 years of pain and manipulation finally cracking the walls he'd built around his heart. "I'm so sorry," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry for everything." "I know," she whispered, stroking his hair like she would a frightened child. "I know, and I forgive you. We'll find a way to heal from this, all of us." Later, as the three of them stood on the castle's highest balcony watching the sun set over their realm, Sarah felt a sense of completion she'd never experienced before. The auction block where her story had begun felt like a lifetime ago, though it had been only weeks. "Do you think we're ready for what's coming?" she asked. "No," Darius replied honestly. "But we'll become ready. We'll grow into the rulers our people need us to be. And if we fail? Then we'll fail together, fighting for something worth dying for." He turned to face her, his expression serious but not afraid. "But I don't think we will fail. Not with you beside me." Sarah looked out over the realm that was now hers to protect, at the people who looked to her for guidance and strength. The crown on her head felt less heavy now, more like it belonged there. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily now that her voice had fully returned. "I love you, Darius Blackthorn, curse and crown and all." "And I love you, Sarah Silvermoon," he replied, pulling her close. "My mate, my queen, my salvation." As the stars came out overhead, painting the sky with silver light, they held each other and prepared for whatever darkness might come. They were no longer the broken Omega and cursed king who had found each other at a claiming ceremony. They were something new, something stronger. They were hope itself, forged in shadow and crowned with starlight, ready to face whatever ancient enemies might dare to threaten the realm they would build together. The auction block was behind them. The throne awaited, and their greatest adventure was just beginning. Epilogue. 5 years later, the morning sun streamed through the nursery windows of Blackthorn Castle, casting rainbow prisms across walls painted with murals of wolves running beneath silver moons. Sarah sat in the rocking chair her mate had carved with his own hands, cradling their 3-month-old daughter while humming a lullaby her own mother had once sung to her, memories that had returned piece by piece as her power grew stronger. Little Luna Blackthorn was perfect in every way, with her father's storm-gray eyes and her mother's dark hair. More importantly, she was healthy and whole, showing no signs of the trauma that had marked previous moon-blessed children. The curse of her bloodline, it seemed, had been broken along with everything else that terrible and wonderful night 5 years ago. "She's going to be a handful," Darius said from the doorway, his voice soft with wonder. Even after all this time, he still looked at their daughter like she was made of starlight and dreams. "All the best queens are," Sarah replied with a smile, carefully transferring Luna to her father's waiting arms. "Just look at her grandmother." They'd found Luna Silvermoon's journals in the ruins of Sarah's childhood cottage the year before, along with artifacts that had helped piece together the true history of the Moon Blessed. Her mother hadn't been the corrupted woman Marcus, and the Shadow Pack had painted her as, she'd been a healer, a teacher, a woman who'd tried desperately to protect her children from forces beyond her understanding. The truth had been painful to learn, but it had also been healing. Sarah's nightmares had stopped, replaced by dreams of her mother's gentle voice and her father's laughter. "Speaking of grandmothers," Darius said, settling into the chair beside her, "Marcus finished the restoration of the Silvermoon Memorial yesterday. He wants you to see it before the ceremony tonight." Tonight marked the 5th anniversary of their coronation, but more importantly, it was the first annual Day of Unity, a celebration of the peace that had held between all the packs since that terrible battle with the Shadowkin. What had started as a desperate alliance of necessity had grown into something beautiful, a true nation of werewolves working together for the common good. "How is he?" Sarah asked. Her brother had spent the last 5 years trying to atone for his actions, throwing himself into charitable works and reconstruction projects with the fervor of a man seeking redemption. "Better. Dr. Voss says the nightmares are less frequent now." Darius's expression grew thoughtful. "He asked me something yesterday that I've been thinking about." "What?" "He wants to know if we'd consider letting him be Luna's godfather. Officially." Sarah's heart clenched. In the early years after the battle, Marcus had been too broken to be around children at all. The corruption he'd willingly embraced had left scars on his soul that took time and patience to heal. But gradually, he'd begun to find his way back to the light. "What did you tell him?" "That it was your decision to make." Darius shifted Luna to his shoulder, patting her back gently when she made a small sound of protest. "But I think it would be good for both of them." He needs something to live for besides guilt, and she needs to know her uncle. Through the nursery window, Sarah could see the sprawling grounds of the castle where representatives from dozens of packs had already begun arriving for tonight's celebration. The sight still amazed her. Wolves who had been bitter enemies just 5 years ago now greeting each other like family, their children playing together without fear or suspicion. I'll talk to him, she decided. But I think you're right. Luna should know all of her family. A knock at the door interrupted them. Your Majesties? Came the voice of Captain Sarah Ironwood, the first female captain of the Royal Guard and one of Sarah's closest friends. The delegation from the European packs has arrived, and there's a situation. Sarah and Darius exchanged glances. The European werewolf nations had been struggling with their own version of the Shadowkin problem for the past 2 years. If they'd come seeking help. We'll be right there, Darius said. Have Dr. Voss meet us in the strategy room, and send someone to fetch Marcus. Already done, Your Majesty. Sarah rose to take Luna back, but Darius shook his head. She's settled. Besides, the European delegation specifically requested to meet the moon-blessed heir. Apparently, they have their own prophecies about her. More prophecies, Sarah sighed. Wonderful. They made their way through the castle corridors, past portraits that now included images of United Pack celebrations and reconstruction efforts. The old paintings of stern-faced kings had been joined by artwork celebrating community, healing, and hope. The strategy room buzzed with activity when they arrived. Representatives from 12 European packs filled the space, their expressions grave but determined. At their head stood a woman Sarah recognized from diplomatic correspondence, Alpha Elena Volkov of the Russian Tundra Pack. Your Majesties, Elena said, bowing respectfully. Thank you for seeing us on such short notice. Of course, Sarah replied. Captain Ironwood mentioned a situation? The Shadowkin have found a way to breach the dimensional barriers permanently, Elena said without preamble. 3 of our major cities have already fallen to their influence. We've lost contact with the entire Carpathian region. The room fell silent except for Luna's soft breathing. Sarah felt her heart sink even as her mind raced through possibilities. How many casualties? Darius asked. Thousands, though most aren't dead, they're converted. Turned into shadow thralls like your brother was, but without the possibility of redemption. Elena's expression was grim. We've tried everything we can think of. Traditional weapons are useless, and our individual pack magic isn't strong enough to combat their corruption. But you think our unified approach might work, Sarah realized. We're hoping it might. The stories of what you achieved here, the way you bound all the North American packs together. Elena looked directly at Luna sleeping peacefully in her father's arms. And we have our own prophecies about the moon-blessed child. They speak of a new generation that will bridge not just packs, but nations. Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking healthier than he had in years. The work of redemption had been good for him. He'd gained weight, his eyes were clear, and the shadow-touched pallor had faded from his skin. You sent for me? He said, then stopped short when he saw the European delegation. Oh, I can come back later if... No, stay, Sarah said firmly. You have experience with Shadowkin corruption that could be valuable. Marcus straightened, pride and gratitude warring in his expression. It had taken years, but he was finally beginning to believe that his past didn't have to define his future. Dr. Voss arrived moments later, carrying an armload of scrolls and looking harried. I came as soon as I heard. Are we dealing with another incursion? Worse, Darius said. A full invasion. They spent the next several hours going over intelligence reports, maps, and potential strategies. The picture that emerged was grim. The Shadowkin had learned from their defeat 5 years ago and adapted their tactics accordingly. They're not trying to corrupt individual leaders anymore, Marcus observed, studying a map of the affected regions. They're going after the pack bonds themselves, severing the connections between wolves and making them easier to control. Can they do that? Elena asked. With enough concentrated shadow magic, yes, Dr. Voss replied grimly. It's like severing a limb, but worse, it severs the soul. Sarah felt sick. The pack bonds were sacred, the very foundation of werewolf society. To deliberately destroy them was an atrocity beyond imagining. There has to be a way to counter it, she said. Some way to strengthen the bonds instead of just protecting them. Actually, Dr. Voss said slowly, there might be. It would require extending your unified bond network across national boundaries, but theoretically. Theoretically what? Darius prompted. Theoretically, if we could connect the European packs to your network the way the North American packs are connected, the Shadowkin wouldn't be able to sever individual bonds. They'd have to break the entire network at once, which would require more power than they've ever demonstrated. Elena leaned forward eagerly. How would that work? What would we need to do? It would require a moon blessed to serve as the central anchor, Dr. Voss explained. Someone with enough power to maintain connections across that kind of distance. All eyes turned to Sarah, who felt the familiar weight of destiny settling on her shoulders once again. But this time it didn't feel burdensome. It felt like coming home. When do we start? She asked. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Messages were sent to pack leaders across Europe, asking them to send representatives to an emergency gathering. The castle's great hall was cleared and prepared for a ritual unlike anything attempted in recorded history. As evening fell and the anniversary celebration began in earnest, Sarah found herself standing once again on the balcony where she and Darius had so often planned for the future. Luna was asleep in her arms, peaceful and trusting, completely unaware that her mother was about to attempt something that could reshape the supernatural world. Second thoughts, Darius asked, joining her at the railing. Third and fourth thoughts, she admitted. But we have to try. I can't let the Shadowkin destroy everything we've built, everything we've learned about unity and hope. We've come a long way from that auction platform, he mused. Have we? Sometimes I feel like we're still that broken Omega and cursed king, just pretending to know what we're doing. Darius turned to face her, his expression serious but warm. Maybe we are. Maybe that's exactly what the world needs, leaders who remember what it's like to be powerless, who choose love over fear even when it's terrifying. Below them, the celebration was in full swing. Wolves from dozens of packs had gathered in the castle courtyard, their voices raised in traditional songs that spoke of hunt and home, family and belonging. Children who had never known the bitter divisions of the old days played together, without a thought for pack boundaries or ancient grudges. Look what you've built, Darius said softly. Look what your choice to save rather than destroy has created. Sarah followed his gaze and felt her heart swell with pride and love. This was her legacy, not the power to sing curses into being or tear down kingdoms, but the ability to heal what was broken and unite what had been divided. Ready? Marcus appeared beside them, looking nervous but determined. In his hands he carried a silver circlet set with moonstones, a focusing crown Dr. Voss had crafted specifically for tonight's ritual. Ready, Sarah said, though her heart hammered against her ribs. They made their way down to the great hall, where nearly 300 werewolves waited in respectful silence. The European representatives stood in a circle around the central dais, their expressions hopeful but uncertain. My friends, Sarah began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. 5 years ago, we learned that unity is not just a pretty ideal, it's our greatest strength. Tonight, we have the chance to extend that strength to our brothers and sisters across the ocean who are facing the same darkness we once conquered. She stepped onto the dais and placed the circlet on her head. Power immediately began flowing through her, connecting her to every wolf in the hall and beyond, the vast network of pack bonds that now span the North American continent. This ritual is not without risk, she continued. Extending the bond network across such distances has never been attempted before. But the alternative, allowing the Shadowkin to corrupt and destroy our European cousins, is unacceptable. Elena stepped forward first, representing the Russian packs. We offer our bonds freely, moon-blessed queen. We trust in your strength and wisdom. One by one, the other European representatives came forward to pledge their pack's participation. With each pledge, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility growing, but also a sense of rightness that told her this was exactly what she was meant to do. Darius, she said, extending her hand to her mate. I can't do this alone. He stepped onto the dais beside her, their bond flaring to brilliant life as their hands touched. Through him, she could access the power of the crown, the authority that came with kingship, the strength that came from having faced true darkness and emerged victorious. Together, he said simply. The ritual began with the ancient songs, voices raised in harmonies that had been old when the first werewolf walked on 2 legs. Power flowed through the hall like a tide, connecting pack to pack, heart to heart, soul to soul. Sarah felt the exact moment when the first European bond snapped into place. A rush of connection that brought with it images of vast forests and snow-covered mountains, the scents and sounds of wolves who had never known the unity she took for granted. More bonds followed, each one strengthening the overall network, creating a web of connection that spanned 2 continents. The power required was enormous, but she wasn't carrying it alone. Every wolf in the hall was contributing their strength, their will, their hope for a better future. When the last bond settled into place, Sarah swayed on her feet, exhausted but exhilarated. Through the network, she could sense thousands of wolves across Europe suddenly feeling the warmth of true unity for the first time in their lives. "It's done," she whispered, and her words were carried through the bond to every connected wolf on both continents. The celebration that followed lasted until dawn. Wolves who had been strangers hours before embraced like long-lost family. Children who had never seen beyond their own pack territories suddenly had playmates on distant continents. As the sun rose over the castle, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Sarah found herself back in the nursery with her family. Luna was awake and gurgling happily, completely oblivious to the fact that her mother had just changed the course of supernatural history. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. He'd stayed close throughout the night, ready to lend his strength if needed. "Tired," Sarah admitted. "But good. Right. Like this is what we were always meant to do." Through the bond network, she could sense the first reports coming in from Europe. Shadowkin retreating in confusion as their ability to sever pack bonds was negated by the unified network. Cities being reclaimed, families reunited, hope restored. "The European packs are already reporting success," Darius said, reading from a message that had just arrived by Hawk. "The Shadowkin can't maintain their hold when faced with unified resistance." "So we won?" Marcus asked. "We've won this battle," Sarah corrected. "But there will be others. The Shadowkin are ancient and patient. They'll adapt, find new strategies, new ways to try to tear us apart. Then we'll adapt too," Darius said firmly. "We'll grow stronger, more united, more determined to protect what we've built." Luna chose that moment to reach up with one tiny fist and grasp a strand of Sarah's hair, tugging gently. Her gray eyes were bright with infant curiosity, as if she already understood that she was part of something larger than herself. "She's going to grow up in a world where unity is the norm, not the exception," Sarah mused. "Where pack boundaries are just lines on maps, not barriers between hearts." "Thanks to you," Marcus said quietly. "Thanks to the choice you made to save rather than destroy." "Thanks to all of us," Sarah corrected. "Every wolf who chose trust over fear, love over hatred, unity over division. Luna's generation will inherit a better world because we all decided to build one together." As if in agreement, Luna cooed softly and settled back into her mother's arms, perfectly content in the knowledge that she was loved, protected, and part of something beautiful. Outside the nursery windows, the castle grounds were slowly returning to normal as the visiting delegates prepared for their journeys home. But they weren't really leaving. Through the bond network, they would always be connected, always be family. "What's next?" Darius asked, settling beside his mate and daughter. "Next, we keep building," Sarah said simply. "We strengthen what we've created, prepare for whatever challenges come, and make sure Luna grows up knowing that love is always stronger than darkness." She looked out at the morning sunlight painting the world in shades of hope and promise, then down at the tiny face of her daughter. The next generation of moon-blessed, born not into a world of curses and corruption, but into one of unity and love. The auction block felt like something from another lifetime now. The scared, silent Omega who had stood on that platform, convinced she was worthless and unwanted, had become a queen who commanded the loyalty and love of wolves across 2 continents. But the greatest transformation hadn't been in power or position. It had been in understanding that she had always been worthy of love, always been capable of greatness. The curse that had stolen her voice for so many years had actually been protecting her until she was strong enough to use it properly, not as a weapon, but as an instrument of healing. "I love you," she whispered to her sleeping daughter. "I love your father, I love your uncle, I love our people and the world we're building for you. And someday, when you're old enough to understand, I'll tell you the story of how love conquered everything, even the darkness itself." Luna's only response was a contented sigh, but through the bond network, Sarah felt thousands of wolves across 2 continents sharing in her happiness, her hope, her unshakable belief in the power of unity to overcome any obstacle. The future stretched ahead of them, bright with possibility and warm with the promise of continued growth, continued connection, continued love. And for the first time since childhood, Sarah felt truly at peace. They had found their happily ever after, not as an ending, but as a beginning. The beginning of a story that would be told for generations, of the Omega who became a queen, the cursed king who found redemption, and the love that united a world. In the distance a wolf howled, not in loneliness or challenge, but in pure joy. Soon other voices joined it, creating a symphony that stretched across continents and touched the hearts of all who heard it. It was the song of tomorrow, and it was beautiful. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share, and subscribe for more.